Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back to the course titled Strategic Communication for Sustainable Development. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And in the previous lecture we discussed the psychological aspects of sustainability communication, and there were a few topics left, so I'm going to try and cover those now in this lecture. So let's move on. We did not get a chance to discuss the strategies and instruments for promoting sustainable behavior through communication. Now, the two primary strategies that we can use to promote sustainable behavior are cognitive strategies and behavioral strategies. Cognitive strategies, as the name suggests, deal primarily with trying to influence cognition and knowledge of environmental conditions and changes by working with information and educational approaches. So we are trying to change through these approaches. We try to change the way people think about situations. We try to influence the way people perceive what is coming to them from the environment. We try to help people realize the filters through which they perceive information coming through from the environment, and we try to help them understand how to respond to those filters, how to acknowledge the existence of those filters, how to interpret information as accurately as possible despite those filters, and how to understand how those filters function and how to remove or bring down or reduce the effects of these filters to the extent possible in the way they interpret what is coming to them from the environment, and to work in ways in which these filters, the effect of these filters is minimized. So that is what cognitive strategies do. They influence our thinking patterns, they influence the way we think about things. Now, some of the cognitive strategies are, one is the characteristics of the source message channel receiver model proposed by Berlow. And Berlow proposed a model for communication which is the source message channel receiver model, in which he emphasized the importance of context. And the proposition here was, what Berlow proposed was that context determines to a great extent how the sender perceives what has to be said. So the sender decides to send a message through his or her own filters, and there are various attributes of the sender that help the sender do this. So I would I'm not going to spoon feed you in this, so I'm going to urge you to look up this model and try and understand what I'm telling you in light of what you find online regarding this model. This is the model that the entire advertising industry rests on. So, I mean, that's how these fields are so connected overall. Yeah, I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about communication, and I'm also talking about marketing, and I'm also talking about persuasion, and I'm talking about aligning contexts. So let's get back to Berlow's model. Berlow's model discusses how the context of the source, of the person designing the message, decides or helps the person decide or impacts the way what message is designed, the way it is designed. So from the attitudes, from the context, from the understanding of based on the understanding of the person who's designing the message, the person designing the message picks out the content of the message, the language is picked out, the words that have to be used are picked out, and then the sender decides which channel to use to send the message. So is it orally, or is it through telephone, or is it through mass media, or is it digitally, or what? And then the control the sender has over the message is only up to that extent. How the message is interpreted depends on the context of the receiver of the message. How the message is interpreted depends on what the receiver of the message feels about the sender, about the language, about the content of the message, about the channel also of the message. So you could choose a particular channel to get in touch with somebody. You could maybe pick up the phone and call somebody, and the first reaction this person has is, why did you call me? Why did you not come and meet me personally? Or why did you feel the need to call me? Why could you not send me an email? So how the sender perceives, or sorry, how the receiver perceives the choice of the channel by the sender also has an impact on how the message is interpreted, how the intention behind sending the message is interpreted, how the action taken in response to the message is interpreted, and all of this will in turn impact how people think about their behavior towards the environment. For example, if I tell my students, I am a teacher, so I am living on campus and I see my students, again I am going to use an example that I used in the previous one of the previous classes. I see a student throwing a toffee wrapper on the ground, and I just walk up to the student and authoritatively tell the student not to throw the toffee wrapper on the ground. The student could, one, take it as an order from a teacher, two, take it as genuine concern by somebody who's who's really concerned about the environment, three, take it very lightly and not really pay attention to it because the student doesn't know me. So, depending on what the student thinks of me, what the student thinks of my tone, what the student thinks of the words that I use, the student could take the same message differently, could interpret this message differently. Now, let's take another case. I go and I see my colleague, one of my peers, throwing a toffee wrapper on the ground, and I go up to my colleague and say, please don't throw the toffee wrapper on the ground. The colleague could interpret it very differently. I am in a position of authority as far as my students are concerned, so they may be forced to listen to me, but my colleagues are not under any gun. They are not going to be forced to listen to me. So the colleague will say, none of your business. Could, they will not. But my colleagues are very nice here, so they will not say this, but they could. And who am I to stop them? On the other hand, if I see any person on my campus throwing a toffee wrapper on the ground, and I go and pick up that toffee wrapper and put it into the dustbin in front of them, it's the same message. I say, please don't do it. So their reaction will be very different. They could feel ashamed. Or using the same words, instead of saying it to the student, I send the student an email. Dear so and so, I saw you throwing a toffee wrapper on the ground. Please don't do it in future. More serious. Why? Because a record has been created. Or I pick up the phone and call up my colleague or students and say, please don't throw toffee wrappers on the ground. The reaction will be totally different depending on the channel I pick, even with the same words. That is what this model talks about, and that is how people's thinking is changed because of the way they interpret things. So if we change the way we convince people to interpret the way they interpret things, then we could bring about a change in their behavior. It all rests on communication. I'm a communication teacher, and I can tell you for a fact that communication really makes the world go round. Okay, and concrete feedback added to source message channel receiver. So it's not only the interpretation of the message by the receiver of the message, it's also the feedback. So we could go on a lecture on communication, but we don't have that much time. So the feedback that the receiver receives from the environment after interpreting the message that has been sent and acting on it will also affect the way the receiver perceives the message in future. If the feedback is positive, if the feedback is comfortable for the receiver will continue to interpret the message in the same way. If the feedback is negative or makes the receiver uncomfortable, then the receiver will interpret the message in a different way. For example, I go and tell my student, please don't throw the toffee wrapper on the ground. The student sees this as an authority and does what I have asked him or her to do despite not wanting to do it. So the student bends down, picks up the toffee wrapper, puts it in the dustbin, makes a face and walks away. The next time the student sees me, before I can say anything, either the student will not throw the toffee wrapper on the ground, or when he is in front of me, or when he's facing me, or when he sees me seeing him, he will throw the toffee wrapper in the dustbin, and then a smile will come on my face. So I will give him some feedback that I have acknowledged the change in his behavior. And the next time the student will not feel so bad about me asking him to do something. And he sees not only my reaction, but the reaction of the other people in the environment. There are other people who've seen the student throwing toffee wrappers on the ground earlier, who see that the same student who was making a mess has now decided to use something called as a dustbin. So we either don't react or we encourage just by smiling at this person. So the feedback that is added to this will change the perception, and the person also sees everybody else in the environment, or many people in the environment, doing the same thing. People who were throwing toffee wrappers on the ground are now throwing toffee wrappers into the dustbin, and there's an overall positive feeling about this. Okay, antecedent strategy, learning from models. So whatever has been done in the past is then communicated to people, saying that this is what is being done in this location, this is what is being done by this person, this person, this person. So let us emulate something positive that has been done in another region, or in another, or by another community, etc. That is antecedent strategy, and that helps people learn how to, or change the way they do things. Prompts, we could put up posters showing people how to do things. There is a dustbin, you have a picture of somebody throwing something into the dustbin. That is a prompt, reminding people every time they have an urge to throw something on the ground. We put up these posters in strategic locations. Self-defined or adopted goals, we encourage people, we tell them why this is important, and let them decide on their own as to how long they want to take to change their behaviors. And private or public commitments. So I make a commitment to myself that I am going to change my behavior. I make a commitment to my friends, to my teachers, that I am going to be more concerned about the environment. I will not print as many sheets of paper as I used to earlier to save some trees. I need paper, but I will do most of my work online. I will not print as many things as I used to in the past. So, so that's a public commitment, and we sort of get public pressure, peer pressure, through telling each other, through setting these public goals, we change our behavior. Okay, these are cognitive strategies. Behavior strategies, consequence means, consequence measures, reward and punishment, or feedback. So if you throw toffee wrappers on the ground, you will be fined 1 rupee for every toffee wrapper thrown on the ground. Okay, if you keep your classroom clean, we will have a party at the end of every month. That's a behavioral strategy. X behavior leads to Y consequence, and that is how we change or promote sustainable behavior. You do something positive, you get positive reinforcement. You do something negative, you get a negative reinforcement, negative response from the environment. Okay, so it's reward and punishment. Some principles of information and communication. How are information and communication related to how I perceive what is going on in my environment, and how I should behave for the betterment of my environment? So these are some of the things that influence my decisions. The first one here is, who is the communicator? Who is telling me not to throw toffee wrappers on the ground? Who is telling me not to throw trash around myself? Is this somebody I respect? Is this somebody who has any competence, who has any credibility, who is believable, who knows what she is saying? Or is it just some random person? Personal appearance. Shabby looking person or a person who seems to be in control of his or her own personal self? What does the person look like? And it makes a difference. You'll say it is very superficial. No, a person who is well dressed, who has all his or her hair in place, whose clothes are in place, will be heard more than a person who has a shabby look, who's not groomed properly. I mean, that is a fact of life. Prestige. The director of the institute walks by, students will not throw toffee wrappers on the ground. The head of their own department walks by, they will not throw toffee wrappers on the ground. I've seen so many, and this is more prominent in community oriented cultures. In community oriented cultures, we have these social hierarchies. Okay, so and they're much more pronounced. But among peers, they really don't care. But if a teacher walks by, I've seen my students just shying away. I know they smoke, so I keep telling them, don't burn your lungs, but they keep burning their lungs, and they're doing it and they hide, and they'll throw their cigarette butts randomly. But among peers, they will not really bother. But when somebody senior to them in age or authority is around them, their behavior changes. So who is the communicator? Who is asking you to do something? Okay, affiliation, etc. What is communicated? What is said? I go to a student and I say, do not throw toffee wrappers on the ground. And then I add a word, please. Long time back, somebody told me about this magic word, Please. Please. You add just one word and things get done. What is communicated? I am requesting you, I am not ordering you. Please do not throw toffee wrappers on the ground. What is said? Content and design of information, accuracy, understandability. So I say, okay, if you throw toffee wrappers on the ground, they are not biodegradable material. Now, my students here at IIT will understand the word biodegradability, but any other child, maybe a school child playing on the ground, will not understand this, and they'll say, what did you say? Why should I not throw it here? Okay, so understandability of the message. I go into the community, I go into a village and I tell them that this is not biodegradable, and they'll say, what do you mean? And I'll say, this doesn't convert into dust, but they'll say it does, and it does burn. Now what happens when it burns is, unless I tell them that even after these toffee wrappers burn, they will not add value to your soil, they will in turn take away the fertility of the soil. Okay, so they will not be manure for your soil like normal organic ash will be. They will in turn hamper what your soil or the productivity, the nutrients in your soil. That is something they will understand when they see these plastic pellets, that are left behind when you burn plastic. So that they will understand. Understandability, personalization, presentation, connection to beliefs, interests and knowledge of recipients and stakeholders. What am I saying? Do they relate to it or not? Do they believe it or not? Can they connect to it or not? And ability to evoke emotion and stimulate action. I'll say, this is your environment. You've heard me talk about my campus. It's my campus. I don't have an ownership certificate. I don't own even a centimeter of the land here, but I live here. There is a sense of belonging. The minute I say our campus, I'm telling the students that as long as you are here, you belong here. You belong to this place for the rest of your life because you've come here as students. So it's our campus. It's our home. Let's keep our campus, our institute clean. Emotion. So when I say my home, my institute, my sense of belonging increases and my commitment to keeping my place clean increases. Okay, in the context of what we are discussing. Interests, knowledge. And when I connect whatever I am saying to an emotion they feel, then the action is much faster. What is the intention or function of a communication situation? Why am I saying what I am saying? Why am I asking students not to throw toffee wrappers on the ground? It's not because I want to assert my authority. I get enough chance to do that in class. It's because I'm genuinely concerned about the physical environment of my institute. I'm genuinely concerned about the trees in my institute. I'm genuinely concerned about the health of my colleagues, because I don't want to see piles of trash accumulated in different places. So I'm genuinely concerned about the soil quality in my institute. This is my institute, my environment. So the intention is to keep the environment clean, and to make sure that whatever we do is for the betterment of the society as a whole. It's not a personal interest that I have. The minute the students realize that, they listen to me. Okay, indirect request. So I see a person throwing a toffee wrapper on the ground, and I go and pick up that toffee wrapper, smile at the person, and put the toffee wrapper in front of that person into the dustbin. That is an indirect request, that please do not do it, it's not good. On the other hand, the direct request would be, I go and tell the person, please do not throw a toffee wrapper on the ground, it hurts the environment. Okay, so indirect requests present facts, opinions, options, standards, objectives, and model behavior or feedback with no intention to persuade or make calls for action. Anytime I see somebody throwing something on the ground, pick it up and throw it into the dustbin. Sometime back, I was associated with an organization on campus called the National Sports Organization, and we used to, have a cleaning drive every semester. So one unit, a group of 90 to 100 students would, divide themselves into different groups, and we would go around the campus cleaning the campus, picking up trash where people could see us at a time when people frequented those places, and the results were amazing. We were just modeling behavior. And we just had labels on, the students had labels on their chairs saying, let us keep our campus clean, with a smiley face. And they wore gloves and they picked up trash in front of people. So people felt guilty for throwing trash on the ground. That is modeling behavior. We didn't tell people, come and join us cleaning the campus, we just did it. And that started a wave, So that is what is meant by an indirect request. Direct request is going into classes telling people not to dirty the campus. What media is used? Purpose of communication and impact on target of communication, individual or mass reach, direct message or stimulation of discussion, etc. What kind of media am I using? Am I using television or posters or loudspeakers, etc.? What is the desired success of communication? How do I assess the impact in terms of noticeable long-term behavior changes? Okay, how do I assess whether what I've done and said has made a difference or not? So all of these things will help us design strategies to change the behavior of people. Okay, and that is the psychological aspect of sustainability communication. Factors affecting attitudes towards sustainability: power. Power determines whose voice gets heard and how and why. It determines which policies are made and for whom. So when we dig bore wells in the village, the location of the bore well will decide who gets to use it and when, and who gets to use it first and who gets to use it last. Okay, and this is another huge discussion. Culture is another aspect. Culture acts as a medium that can give shape to the communication and action that is necessary so that sustainable development can be achieved on ecological, environmental, economic, profit and social planes, people. In other words, the cultural dimension, by means of reflection, thinking about what we've done, development and change in our values, forms the basis for sustainable development, but also produces new culture itself. So the feedback that is coming changes the way we think about things, from then on. Okay. How does culture affect attitudes towards sustainability communication? Culture also determines the seats of power, hierarchy, who gets heard, how, why. Okay. Knowledge, traditional, what we know versus expert knowledge, what we should know versus bureaucratic knowledge, what we are allowed to know in terms of policies, procedures, etc. So what we know as a part of our culture, what we've been doing forever. Expert knowledge is what we should know. Somebody from outside, one of our own, goes and comes to know things. Versus bureaucratic, what kinds of policies are implemented. Implementation of development policies, meaning varies with cultural understanding. So when we bring in these policies, we decide how, or the meaning of the policies, that the way we interpret these policies changes with how we understand them. Okay, so and accountability and time frames, how long will it take to bring in a policy, how long will it take for the policy to get accepted into the community. All of these are psychological aspects. It depends on our interpretation of the situation, our reactions to it, our understanding of it, and how we learn from our environment and how we respond to it after we have learned from it. And all of this is intertwined with the culture that we function in. We will discuss the challenges to participatory communication in another lecture. I think we are running out of time, but I would like to discuss the bottom line with you. The bottom line here is that communities do not change because of the availability of policies or opportunities or even resources. Communities' attitudes do not change through one-way delivery of information generated by experts. You tell people that this is something new that you need to do, people will not change. This is the policy that has been designed for you, it will not change. Okay, communities need to be involved, they need to be empowered, they need to be heard. We need to be sensitive to the community, we need to go in, become a part of the community, and then slowly start bringing in change. They need to be empowered and given the freedom to decide what they want, how they want it, and when they want it. Am I ready to take in a new change? It is monsoon season and you're telling me about not throwing toffee wrappers on the ground. I can barely make it to my house in one piece because I have to wade through 2 or 3 feet of water. How do I care? And if I have a toffee on the way and just throw that toffee wrapper in the running water, I mean, come on, give me a break. That is something that people will say. Should I be concerned about the environment, or should I be concerned about my footwear not leaving my feet when I'm wading through knee-deep water? So when do I want it? Social and behavioral change comes from within. It comes from here. It can't be enforced on people. We can't tell people, okay, this is what you have to do. And therefore has to be motivated in and through communication. Usually indirect communication. We can't tell people what to do. We can only show them model behaviors, very, very, very subtly engage them in what we need them to do, and slowly take them in directions that will be comfortable for them. In and through communication, not coercion through expert or referential power. I know more than you, so you have to listen to me. Referential power, I am in a position of authority, so you have to listen to me. I am so and so, I am a professor at IIT Kharagpur, so you have to listen to me. Big deal, so what? Unless I go and tell them that I am one of you, I am concerned about you, and I have to prove to them that I am concerned about them, they will not listen to me. Why should they? Okay, so it has to be motivated from inside. I have to genuinely be concerned about the community, I have to be a part of the community, and only then can I understand what the community needs and when it will be ready for the change. And slowly I can take them towards this change, towards an understanding of why and how they can preserve their own environment, not my environment, the environment they live. Development cannot be quantified or tangibly measured. There is debate about this. Some people say it can be, some people say it can't be. I personally feel that development is more a state of mind than a tangible measurement of our environment. Development is a state of mind and should be considered as such. Now, I would really encourage you to go through this lecture. We don't have time for it. It's about this lecture is about an hour long. Mr. Dagron's lecture. Gentleman by the name of Mr. Alfonso Gumucio Dagron is an activist, a public activist in sustainability communication, and he is doing immense amount of work, and most of his work is in Spanish. He's a Bolivian, and but he's also a filmmaker, he's also a writer, so he's done a lot of work in the area of sustainability communication. This one particular lecture is in English. I will give you the link in your resources. I would really encourage you to watch this on your own. and we will continue from here in the next lecture. Thank you very much for listening.